What would you say is the favorite, your favorite project that you've worked on?
The next one. Sorry,
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Who's Joe YouTube edition. Who's Joe?
Who the is Joe?
Who's Joe?
Who's Joe?
Who's Joe?
Yeah. Who is Joe?
Today I am here with Tom for our ninth staring contest video. I am currently 8-0, but why don't you go ahead and tell us a little about yourself, Tom?
how are you? My name's Tom Moore, and I guess I would be considered an up-and-coming screenwriter. I tend to work in genre material, so I do a little comedy, but mostly horror, thriller type territory, and I'm really excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Are you ready to get into the staring contest portion of this?
I'm ready to lose. I couldn't win a punch in the mouth, so yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Alrighty. I will count us down from 5. I'll go ahead and blink real quick.
All right, that's a good idea. I should have got tips from the champs.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go. If you could work with any director in the world, what would be your dream director to work with?
All right, I'll just go Tarantino because it comes to mind fastest.
And would you hate me if I called you out for the amount of times you've already blinked?
No. I'm gonna suck at this. Yeah. Oh God! All right, I'm doing the Clockwork Orange.
What would be your dream intellectual property to work with? Like, if you could grab any IP out there that's already been done and put your own personal spin on it.
Oh, I was gonna say because my first thought was Marvel Comics has this thing called Destroyer, and it's a senior citizen superhero, and I'm like the idea of having basically this murderous Captain America who's a senior citizen just appeals to me so much.
Now, I think it's safe to say that I've won the staring contest portion.
You won it, I think, 3 seconds in.
I am currently 9-0 now. But
yes.
One thing I do in all my other videos, and I'm going to try to keep that up today, I don't always make it the whole length, but I try to go the rest of the interview without blinking as well. So we're going to see if I can do that today.
Wow. You have a gift. I don't think it was a fair fight, but
So, with the whole pandemic going on, what do you think is the current state of the screenwriting community? Because one thing I've seemed to notice as somebody who's dabbled in screenwriting myself is that some of the gatekeepers that had been there pre-COVID aren't quite there as much. It seems like there's more people directly contacting like managers or directly contacting producers themselves over social media avenues like Twitter than there were before. Is that?
I'll say that's actually a separate thing, because if that actually originates from the issues the writers that had with the code of conduct. And I don't know how much, just to give people a general background that's not too comprehensive, but the unions that represented writers were fighting packaging with studios. And without getting into the intricacies of that deal, because of that, a lot of writers were at loggerheads with all the agencies of representation. So if you were just an unknown guy, there were levels of gatekeepers that you had to get through. But because of this disagreement, no one knew what to do. So it basically became about, do you have decent social skills? Because there was a good 3 months where anybody could get read by anybody, and the managers and agents weren't there to stop them. There was no gatekeeper. And that's more of what you're saying too. That was pre-pandemic. The thing the pandemic has changed the most is that it used to be that if you wanted to work on certain things, you had to live in LA. it decentralized everything. I live outside of Philadelphia. I've been able to do a ton of stuff because everyone's meeting on Zoom anyway. So I don't have to be in LA.
If you could go back and find yourself right when you were beginning to get into screenwriting, what would you tell yourself or anybody else that's just now starting to go down the road of trying to become a screenwriter?
There's a few things. The first thing I would say is be patient and be a genuine person that cares about other people. Because what I've learned about Los Angeles is a very interesting culture. But first of all, if there's a lot of things that they just want to know about you before they deal with you. And that takes time. That idea where you're going to show up and slip a screenplay under somebody's a door and they're going to go off of that hasn't happened in 40 years and no one likes that.
Right.
So the way a movie works, they're like, if I'm developing a movie for a year and a half with a guy, I want to like him. If I'm on a set with him for 3-4 months and we're stuck together, I want to like this person. And that's important to them. So I would say, first of all, be decent to other people. Legitimately care about them, not the fake care.
Right.
But have a legitimate interest in people because they'll feel your fakeness. Show people that you love film, all kinds of eras. No one is going to put up with the nonsense of film unless they love film.
What would you say is your favorite project that you've worked on?
The next one. Sorry, right now, I have to be cautious. I'm working on a foreign film, and I'm very excited about the potential for that. So, it's going to be working more in the fashion industry, and it's a drama set in the fashion industry. So it's completely outside of what I've normally done, but I'm very excited for that challenge.
So, you work in writing horror.
I prefer it, yes.
What would you say is the most important element of setting up like the real terror and fright of a horror film?
Well, I think I was talking about the other day, but I think understanding that we're a secular culture, so no sane person is afraid of a werewolf,
right,
or a zombie. What you have to do is, if you're going to use these figures, they have to be metaphors that connect with people in a very real way, or you have to find a way to scare people with what a fundamental fear is. So, like I was just talking about. I don't know if people remember 1978. There was a film called The Shout.
Okay.
And shortly put, John Hurt is this guy that has this beautiful wife and this nice life, and he meets this guy that's he's an Aboriginal magician, and he decides, you know what? I want your life. I want your wife. I want what you have, and I'm going to take it, and you can't stop me.
Okay.
And he gets him thrown out of his house eventually. And he starts to just debase his wife, and she has no control over him. And I'm like, that idea that someone can take your loved ones and abuse them and take over your life and you can't fight back, that is an eternal fear. That is something I can play on that's relevant to people. Getting your blood drained in an alley isn't. So right. I'm like, for us, horror, we have to understand the world has evolved, and we have to evolve how we're scaring people.
What do you think is the place for gore in a horror film? Do you think that it's overdone in modern film?
First of all, I have to say these are phenomenal questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I subscribe more to the John Carpenter school. When he did Halloween, you weren't supposed to root for Michael Myers. You were supposed to hate him. He was a villain. And he eliminated a lot of the characteristics that would make him charismatic. And then it devolved into a slasher genre where you're supposed to root for the villain, but gore is not supposed to be something that you root for, because when you root for gore, then you're stuck with Friday the 13th, where then all you have is you don't care about the person and you don't care about the scenario. You want this set piece, and then it gets increasingly elaborate and more outlandish. So then you're 9 movies in, and you're like, how can Jason kill this guy? And it ends up looking like a Mortal Kombat screen. That's really not compelling at all. When something bad happens to somebody in a movie, you should be cringing. You know, you shouldn't be like, oh, that's awesome. They got their head blown off and the eye popped out and hit the screen. No, it's a tool for you to use as a writer as part of a larger scenario.
Yeah, I get it. You should be saying, oh my God, how did that happen? And not thinking to yourself, finish him. Finish him. One thing I noticed, to switch lanes for a second, on Twitter, one thing I've noticed, and this is probably something that should have happened a long time ago, is that there seems to be a renewed focus on inclusion and diversity in writing rooms, bringing in more people of color. Do you see that as being something that continues to grow? Is that is social media, like hashtags and avenues like that, actually helping people? And if not, what can we do to help?
I'll be honest, it's a tough question, because I think, to be utterly candid, to a degree, it is a little faddish. I can't lie that this year has been great for me, partially because of the attention to diverse writers, but then we did see the momentum from that go away, but that's how that was going to go. But I think there's a responsibility on all of us to be diverse, because I can tell you that for me, I had to reach out to women more, and different kinds of women, and I got feedback on, oh wait, this character isn't, oh, I should change this, oh, this plugs into this trope or stereotype or concern. So I have to be honest that a lot of times we call it diversity, but we break down into smaller pockets of people that look just like us.
Right.
And that's not diversity. So, yeah, I always tell people that I am a writer who is black, but I'm not a black writer. I don't just write black subjects. I have black characters in my screenplays. I have black characters. I have black people that I interact with. But diversity to me means including everybody, and I think we're still overall struggling with that.
I could see that. And building off that, it seems like there's the same focus in the stories that are coming out. Like, with the success that Black Panther had, people want to see more Black Panther. People want to see a Doctor Who of color. People want to see characters that are typically Caucasian roles being played by people of color. What do you think of that trend?
Well, first of all, I think what happens is part of it is just a correction to exclusion. So, of course, you want to see a more diverse representation on screen. I'm just a person that generally calls for balance. So I think we have to really look at, when we approach, for instance, white writers and white showrunners and stuff, are we coming to them and saying we want to be included, and we want something that represents how the population looks? Or are we coming to them and we're like, hey, white devil, get out of here. You shouldn't have a job, and we don't need you around anymore, and this and that. We really have to look at, what do we mean by diversity, and is it inclusive of everyone, and is it respectful of everyone, including white men and white people? Because you can't go to someone and say, give me a spot in your writer's room so I can write about my characters, and he loses his job. And there's nothing that he's allowed to write because we go, well, you're a white person, you can't write this.
Right.
You can't do that. So we have to find balance yet again.
Do you think it is cultural appropriation for a white person as myself to try to write characters of color?
No, I think that splits into two ideas of mine, first of all. Because cultural appropriation to me does not mean imitating a culture. We all do that.
Right.
Cultural appropriation to me is the disrespect of a culture intentionally.
Okay.
So a lot of times we've done unintentional disrespect. For instance, the word Eskimo, and I apologize, but is a slur to some indigenous people. Well, we said that word unintentionally. If we dressed that way, it was unintentional, but we still can use parts of that culture if we want to. I've got mucklucks in my closet. But now I'm more careful about, am I respectful of what they're doing? Appropriation is natural, and I think more cultures should do it. And I believe had more cultures appropriated, they would be more advanced. They would be further ahead. With that said, I believe that most writers should be free to write anything they want, but out of respect, that as part of your research, you should be going out to that community or people that are affected by these characters and going, hey, can you read this? Is this appropriate? Have I handled this well?
So in this modern day social media influenced screenwriting world, do you think agents and managers are still needed like they were 5 years ago?
5 years ago, no. I will say that the problem that you have now is that you have very specific relationships in like streaming networks and stuff, and there are a few things where you just don't have the access to be able to go where you need to. So I think there is a place for management. With that said, I've never had any management. I think in my entire life I've sent out one query, and I'm in a position where I'm still going to be able to work.
Right.
So am I going to be... There's some stuff that I would love to... For instance, I think Amazon's doing lower budgeted action figures. I would really love to get something to them. I can't because of the way that's set up. But am I still going to be able to work? Yeah.
Where as a screenwriter do you see yourself being in like 5 years from now? Or where would you like to be?
I think the ultimate goal is to be somebody that you don't have to constantly sing for your supper. That you're just a working writer, and I would like to not live in LA. I'm not a very LA person, so I'm like I know where I'd like to go, and I'd like to be able to go on my Zoom meeting, have my meeting, write, turn it in, and kind of move on, because I think I don't intend to be a showrunner or anything else. I very much have the mentality of, I make this thing, I'm going to give it to you. If you ask me how it works, I'll let you know. But as a writer, you're the chassis for the movie, and then everyone else kind of runs with it. And I'm okay with that, and that's all I want. I'm like, pay me. I gave you what I was supposed to. I'm here if you need anything. Let's keep it going.
Well, I think at this point we've probably got enough content for the interview.
Sure.
Do you have anything of your own that you would like to plug?
Nope. You can follow me on Twitter, whatever the devil it is. It's Tom A and Tom 1, or whatever I am on Twitter. But aside from that, I'm not asking you to buy anything. Thanks for watching.
All right. Well, we've hit the point of the episode so far where I get you to say, I was not able to beat Joe in a staring contest.
I'm doing it. You ready?
I am ready.
I was not able to beat Joe in a staring contest.
Alrighty, and we've started one other thing just recently where, if you're willing, I would like you to call out somebody else that you would like to have come on here and be on the other end of a staring contest with me.
Well, first of all, if you get Jason Smiley, just make sure he ain't high. If you get Jason Smiley, he's going to cut you wrestling promos about the business.
And of course, if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for you!
So that's going to be a great interview. As Jason's a great resource. So I'm like, no, Jay is definitely going to be a great interview.
Okay. I can deal with wrestling promos.
Yeah.
So far, I have made it 24 and a half minutes in this video.
I never had a chance.
Without blinking.
Don't you coach the Jets?
What's that?
I said, don't you coach the Jets? Like, I never had a chance.
I must. Well, that's going to be it for this episode of Who's Joe YouTube Edition. If you're not already following Tom on Twitter, go ahead and do that. I will post a link to his Twitter in the video description. If you haven't already liked the video, go ahead and do that. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. And we're now 9-0, one win away from going 10-0. And if I do go 10-0, I am going to make a video that has the clips of the first 10 people saying I was not able to beat Joe in a staring contest.
You're not getting beat, man. You ain't going to beat. Unless you go to a funeral parlor, you're not getting beat.
Well, that's going to be it for this episode. I'll see y'all the next time.